But if men never feel like women will ever be that place for them ever, then they're just going to keep internalizing, and we are going to lose a really strong half of our humanity.
Today, I'd like to welcome back to the show a longtime friend, the CEO and founder of NRPR, Nicole Rodrigues. Welcome back to the show, Nicole.
Hi, Chrissy. Thank you for having me again. It's nice to be back.
Yes. So, Nicole, last time we talked about following your heart and God's timing, and this conversation is going to take a little bit of a different turn. Today, we're going to talk about something that's been very near and dear to my heart due to recent events in the political realm, which is usually a realm that I stay out of. But this one is about yeah, I notice I have this huge urge to get involved now, whereas up until a couple of years ago when Roe versus Wade was passed, I looked completely the other way and never thought about politics. However, what's going on with our country, the United States, is that women's rights are being taken away, and there's a huge movement that is blaming men. And I will be completely transparent and say that there's a part of me that blames men too, but not in a way that other people are blaming men. So today we're going to unpack all of this, and we're going to start with defining a couple of terms, the terms that are being thrown around in ways that I don't think they're completely understood. So let's start out by talking about the terms patriarchy and feminism. You decide which one you want to start with, but I'm curious, how would you define those two terms?
You know what, that's a great question, because I think that I don't think that everyone takes this kind of approach, but I'm a very practical person. So when I think of my definition, I am the type of person who's going to run straight to the dictionary to find what the true definition is, so that I can basically have a deeper level of understanding versus what either culture or society is trying to tell me is the thing. So of course I've looked up patriarchy, right? And so like patriarchy is really kind of like that long-standing tradition where back in the day it was like the eldest son of the family basically either takes over the family or takes over the business or whatever, where it's just the natural progression for the man in the family to just take charge in what that is. And so whether that's the home, the business, the whatever. So that's just patriarchy, I think, was by default what they did back in the day, because women at that point weren't anything more than the homemakers, right? So when I think about it, it's, well, men entered the workforce first just because they had this rule. Well, if you're a guy or you're the firstborn and this is how this goes, and that's all that is, right? And so there's another part of the definition where it kind of highlights that basically that women are kind of less than, right? It's that mindset where, well, of course the eldest son of the family is going to take over because, well, there's no woman who would be able to do it. So again, when I think about this, it's like it's very caveman. Men are strong, women are not. And so it was just a natural progression that's kind of how things turned out. And I think we live in a time where I think people have realized that maybe physically women might not be as strong as the strongest man, but mentally and intuitively, that's our strength. This is where we get to come in. And so that's why I think patriarchy now is toxic. And it doesn't make sense, because it doesn't make sense with regards to where evolution has brought us, which is we now inherently see that women are very strong when it comes to other realms. So I think that there needs to be a level of appreciation for physical and mental strength, and not saying that we both can't have both, right? I don't like to put too many people in boxes, but so that's kind of my view of like, okay, that's patriarchy based on the dictionary definition and sort of how we've gotten to it today, right? And why it doesn't make sense today.
Yes. Actually, I did look it up prior to this conversation as well. I've been all over the world right now in so many different texts and videos about the patriarchy, and it does say the literal definition is a society that is dominated by males for the benefit of males, and it
Right.
does outline that it's the lineage and that the lineage is passed through the males in the family. And so because the patriarchy has been the system that our society has been ruled by, we'll say, or influenced by, there has been an act or a movement of feminism. And so I'm curious how you would define feminism.
Yeah. So again, hitting up that dictionary, a while back and just like, well, what exactly does feminism mean? Does it mean that you hate men? Does it mean it's basically just the progression? I think in its purest form, it's just more of the progression of women to be able to aspire to have careers and basically reach the levels that they want to without being suppressed, right? So it's getting past the suppression and allowing women to just come into their own and create that. But I think we've gotten to a point to where feminism has become not just the purest form, but I do think that what I see is people and and a lot of women that I've met that are just like, in order for feminism to work, men must be suppressed now. And I think that that's where, again, where there's imbalance in the patriarchy, imbalance in feminism. How do we just come together and as human beings allow each to aspire in their way without the other side being enemy and having to be suppressed, if that makes sense?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I agree 100%. And the reason that I wanted to have this conversation with you, so for anybody who's listening who hasn't tuned into my podcast before, it's very spiritual. It's a very spiritual podcast. And part of my practice in spirituality is following the works of teachers that promote unity. And there's so much division within these terms or within men and women. And from a spiritual perspective, the masculine, men and women are different. We're wired differently. We have different bodies for a reason because we're meant to work in unity, in harmony. And what I've seen happening, even within the conversations, I myself have posted content and have had women be upset with me for the content that I'm posting, and also have had men upset with me over the content that I'm posting about equality and equity. And the masculine and feminine, from a spiritual perspective, are supposed to complement each other and work together. And what I see happening is more division and even division within the two sides that are supposed to be united. So this conversation is really to bring light to all of the myths and all of the tension that is really existing, because what I believe, and I say I'm not a feminist because I don't hate men, and I don't think that this is all men's fault. We've been just as conditioned into the patriarchy as men have, and men have been conditioned without even knowing it. And so this conversation is really to bring to light what the actual issue is. And the issue is that when a party is suppressed, when they start having equality, the party that wasn't suppressed now feels suppressed.
Right.
When the oppressed party becomes more equal. I think what's missing from the conversation is that there are two things at play here. There's equality and equity. I'm curious what your perspectives of equality and equity are.
Yeah. So I think that when you think of equity, I'm a business minded person. So I think of a pie, right? Like your share of the business, right? So your share in what's possible, your share in how much work you're able to do or how much you're able to earn. And I do believe that there should be a fair share of equity for all. And I think that because we are spiritual beings who, you know, if in your heart and soul you want to aspire to be a fireman, no matter genetically, you know, what you who you are, or you aspire to be an athlete, or you aspire to be a business person, I just believe that as spiritual beings, the equity should be balanced for anyone who aspires to just be who inherently we as spiritual beings are. So that to me is the equity piece of it, right? Just the piece of the pie that I think we all deserve if that's what we are called to, right? If that's what our spirit is called to. And when it comes to equality, I just believe that no side should be suppressed if, again, if I have a calling to be a CEO and to lead a company, as long as I'm doing that with dignity, with integrity, with heart, and, you know, all of the things that I want to bring to the table, why shouldn't I be that? I do believe that, you know, part of my calling was to be a leader. It always has been. So I believe that equally so, if any man is sort of called to be a leader, it shouldn't matter. It's whoever the human that's going to do that best job in being that CEO, CMO, CTO, or maybe not at the C level, maybe it's just manager, director, whatever, whoever can do that job right and the best for the greater good in that whole should equally have the opportunity to do that. So I think that's just that's how I see the equity and equality thing.
Yeah, and there's so many good points that you brought up in that, because the way I see equality and equity is not really from a business standpoint, but the equality is everyone being treated the same and having the same resources and having the same rights.
Mhm.
And equity, as far as this conversation is concerned, similar to what it's like in business, is that every single person has different circumstances, different
Yeah.
situations. So in this conversation, men and women are different. We have different needs, we have different wants, we have different desires, we think differently, we're built differently, we have different functions in society. And so it really, the equity piece is really about everyone being treated fairly
Fairly, I
and
like.
in a way that serves who we are as a spiritual being, or
Mhm.
just as a human, because we're all born the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Spiritually, that's how we're born. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like I think that I know this might sound crazy, but like when I show up to work, I show up strong. I show up as warrior, mama bear, you name it. Like I show up as strength because I know that people are relying on me, right? Like, so I do feel like when I'm at work, I definitely tap into a more masculine side of my personality. But I'll tell you, when I'm at home or I'm getting ready to go out for a night on the town or whatever, my feminine lives and she thrives and she's a goddess and she is sweet and does not want to be a warrior. I do not want to be fighting and challenging my person in my relationship. I want to be the soft place that he can land. I want to be his cheerleader, and that should be okay. It
Yeah.
doesn't make me less of a female because I'm like, listen, I show up to work as strong. I'm not trying to show up at home and be that for my person and not like, do you know what I'm saying? So I
Yeah.
think that there's also that misconception where, oh, well, this person is this way all the time. Well, luckily for me, like I know how to turn that off, you know, and I'm like, I don't want to keep warrior on 24 hours a day. That's freaking tiring.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, and this is where I feel like everyone gets tripped up over these terms, right?
Yeah.
So, women, we have 28-day cycles. our hormones go through a 28-day cycle. So we can't keep up warrior every day. It's not in our body. It's not in our system. We have to relax. Whereas men recycle and move through their hormone cycles every 24 hours. So they have a much faster replenishing time than women do. And I think that what you just said is probably one of the most important pieces that I see within women. We're so divided just within ourselves. We have women who are, we have to be equal to men, and it's not okay to want to be the stay-at-home mom or the stay-at-home wife. Or we have women who are like, it's not feminine to work, and you have to be the stay-at-home mom or the good wife. And what we're really trying to ask for, what we really want as women, is just to have the same rights that men do.
Yeah. Just to be able to be who we are and want what we want and have that be okay. Because you know what? There at the end of the day, I'm going to say it. If I could, I wouldn't be working as hard. What the heck? I am what's the word? I just have high expectations of myself and what I'm capable of. But and at the end of the day, I hold myself to a very high standard in terms of output. But would it be nice to have an equally hard-working man that I can kind of, I don't know, just be his cheerleader and be like, let's just build this together, let's do this together. I'm going to support you emotionally, in your endeavors. You support me emotionally, and we look at it as friends and partners. And I think that life just works out the way it works, right? And it just so happens to be that I'm a hardworking person also with expensive taste. So so I've put myself in my own prison. Kidding. But it should be okay that I have aspirations and go out and work, but that doesn't mean that I want to all the time, every day, all the time. Like I do like breaks, so and I'm not trying to impress anybody with, I can work 24 hours a day and not sleep. Bro, I'm hell on wheels if I don't sleep. So I do sleep for all of your benefit.
Yeah. And I think with that, we could go down a whole rabbit hole that I think would be a different conversation, because I believe that there are many men who don't want to do the same thing either, just because they are men. And so that rabbit hole would be about our economy and how the patriarchy has created this economy. But we're just going to set that one aside for now.
Yeah.
And stick to the topic, because that really is the essence of what we're trying to communicate here, is that the patriarchy and feminism have created this huge divide that continues to put people in a box. And it's not really a solution where we can work together. It's more of a, nope, you have to fit here and you have to fit here, and if you don't, you're bad or you're wrong or you don't fit the system. And that's really so far away from really what we're trying to say, and what women actually want and what men want too. Because there are women who have a very masculine essence and can be that, and there are women who cannot. And there are men who can be that, and there are men who cannot. And so I'd love to use this as a segue into talking about how the patriarchy is harmful for both men and women.
Right. Well, I just think that it's based off of hundreds of thousands of years of, I don't know, just different circumstances, right? So if we are trying to create a future, so if we really think about it, if we as a society want to now flourish under new circumstances, right? Where women who are they aspire to, reach their highest potential, and men want to also reach their highest potential, then patriarchy just doesn't work. I think that that was created more or less in a time when we're thinking about survival of the human race, and survival meant we don't have access to technology. We're digging with our bare hands. We're building with our bare hands. And guess what? Men physically, you put the strongest man next to the strongest woman, and there's a reason why we were built physically, in that way. And so it made sense for the survival of our species. Now, that doesn't necessarily make sense. If you want the human race to survive and really flourish, utilizing the strengths of really strong and, how do I say, just, I don't know, strong and aspirational women, strong and aspirational men, using the best of what we all want to bring, that's how we are going to survive and thrive. So that's why the patriarchy doesn't work in today's society, because equality is going to get us further. And if we could, as women, recognize that that doesn't need to make men enemy, and as men, that doesn't mean that women have to be enemy. We are the human race. How do we make it okay that everyone just aspires to be their best self? That's how this new society and in our new age, it's going to make the most sense for the human race to thrive.
Yeah, and I loved how you brought in that as a society, if we want to flourish, one of the things that I notice across many different social media channels and people who are producing content, there's this collective belief that the patriarchy only benefits men. And it's pretty clear and obvious how it's harmful to women. But if we look at what's going on with society, men have higher suicide rates. Men can't express their emotions because of the patriarchy saying that they've got to keep it all together. Well, yeah, back in our caveman days, they had to protect and hunt, and because they were built differently. But in today's day, that just doesn't apply. And so the patriarchy isn't just benefiting men. It's not actually benefiting anyone. And I'd love to hear more of your perspective on that.
I absolutely agree with you. Just simply because growing up, I have to say that I'm so fortunate to have great men in my life, friends that I consider more like brothers, great uncles, great grandfathers, wonderful stepfathers, just really good men in my life who are not perfect, as are, us women, we all have our flaws too. But at the end of the day, you see the struggles. And I feel like I've been able to have a lot of empathy. And I've been a safe place for a lot of my guy friends and family members. And even, in relationships, my, partners or boyfriends, if you will, that sometimes you need to be that safe place to allow them to unpack just how heavy their load is, right? It is tough to be in a society where you were raised to basically, and I watched my brother kind of have to go through this. Me and my brother are really, really close, but, I saw firsthand that he was told not to cry, whereas me and my sisters, well, if we cried, well, it's okay, just cry, let out your feelings. That's what you do if you're a girl. And that can be toxic because my brother had to, unpack that later in life, and being his sister and somebody that he can just relate to and talk to. I mean, the level of empathy that I have is just profound for men, because if you hold things in, it's tough. How do you progress and have great relationships? How do you progress and feel good about yourself? How do you progress and feel confident when on the outside you're just taught that only your shell matters, and that inside your soul and how you feel doesn't really matter? You have to be strong and be a man because technically you just need to go and do these things. That's tough.
Absolutely. I have been coaching men since 2021. And one of the things that I learned after having several clients is that not only did they experience having to bottle up, process all of this stuff about the world, about their feelings, about their thoughts on their own because they were conditioned to not talk about their feelings, not feel their feelings. There are so many men who make decisions in their life based on obligation because
Oh
they
yeah.
think they have to. And so when we circle back to equity and equality, the patriarchy is harmful to everybody because really it is a toxic system where nobody, not men or women, where nobody is encouraged to be authentic and to authentically unfold into the person that they are meant to be.
Oh, I literally love that you said that, because it's, again, just being a woman in a very heavily male corporate, you know, life, right? And also just being an athlete at the core of who I am. I'm very much built like an athlete, right? Where it's like, you got to play the game, you suck it up, don't feel feelings during the game, don't do this or whatever. And then at work, it's like, it's not personal, it's business. Just go in there, don't feel anything. And then you go home and you're like, you're feeling all the feelings. But the fact of the matter is, as humans, the healthy thing is communicate, let it out. It should be okay without judgment. And I think that we wonder why there are so many, in our society, there are so many divorces. Well, there are people making the wrong decisions on who to marry based on obligation, based on timing, based on this is what everybody wants for me. And then you have people who put themselves in their own personal prison, and then, oh, well, I'm going to look like a bad person if I make this choice, or if I leave, or if this, whatever. We're already not making good decisions based on who we are authentically. You're making decisions based on obligation. We now live in a place where if we could center more in our hearts and heal and be who we are authentically, we are naturally going to attract what's right for us authentically. And then guess what? We won't be dealing with as many divorces and things because we're going into these relationships consciously and with our hearts. And I think it's the same thing with work. Well, I'm obligated to take over the family business, or I'm obligated to go into this line of work. I'm obligated to be a doctor, but really inside of me, I want to be a guitar player, or I want to be this. And then you wonder why there are more suicides and things like that. And again, men, watching it in my own family a little bit, just, it's almost like they didn't get that free pass to just fully be themselves, and having to make more logical, obligation focused decisions. It's no wonder that they're falling into more of a, they're falling into depression. And that's, again, why I feel so much like empathy towards men, because at least as a girl in my family or whatever, I was always encouraged to just be who I was. Yeah. Be who you are. Go aspire to be whatever you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
That was it.
So I'm curious about something. I'm not sure exactly what it is yet, but what you just said, it like set a little light bulb off in me because I remember as a kid. Now, for all the listeners, Nicole and I grew up together. We lived around the corner from each other. So we had
Really?
pretty much the same environment and the same conditioning, other than different parents, right? So for my experience, I remember being a little girl and playing house and pretending like I was a mom. And, for the most part, until I was in my early 20s, I didn't, at that point, I didn't want to have kids. But growing up, I wanted to be a wife. I wanted to be a mom.
Mm.
And I was actually shamed for loving pink and purple, for being the girly girl. My sister was the tomboy. I was the girly girl. Being a cheerleader, in my family, that was looked down upon. Like if I wasn't playing baseball or basketball, which I did, it was still, looked down upon. And so what I'm trying to bring forth here is that I think the patriarchy has conditioned both men and women to
Oh,
do
yeah.
things out of obligation, because I was told, don't depend on a man. Don't depend on a man. You need to have a career. You need to go to college. You need to also simultaneously having the message that after you go to college, that's when you get married and then you have kids.
Yeah.
So it's harmful to
How am I
both.
supposed to do all that? Yeah. Yeah. No, I get it. I would say for me, both of my grandmothers were very, very strong women who were also very tapped into their mom wife role. Like those women wifed so hard that I feel so lucky to have like basically seen two great women who took care of the house, took care of themselves, and were also like, each of my grandfather's best friends. So for me, I always just thought, well, yeah, naturally, I'm just gonna like find that best friend partner of mine, and we're gonna like do life together, and it's gonna be super fun, and we're gonna travel everywhere, and we're gonna build together, and it's gonna be great. And what I found was that my family, or those two sides, right? My both sets of my grandparents were like an anomaly. So me, I do feel like growing up, my favorite color was black. Like black and pink, which is like two complete opposite. But I'm like, my mom was always like, "Are you depressed? You really like black that much?" I'm like, "Yeah, girl, I love it, but I'm super happy." So I liked pink for sure, but I feel like, and I don't know, maybe it's the Puerto Rican culture that even growing up in Fremont, I was allowed to aspire to be a business owner and a CEO, knowing that naturally at being a wife is just going to happen. Being a wife and a mother is just going to happen. And it wasn't until maybe I was in school and kind of seeing other families and hearing things from other friends who'd be like, well, you can't do both. You can't have both. And here in the back of my mind, I'm like, but that's all I know. Like, I know that you can be both. And I know that you can wife hard and work hard at the same time. Like, so it's almost like I've had to force myself to know what I know to be true, which is as a woman, it's possible to be both if that's what you want, and it,
And I think the key word here is if that's what you want.
right. If that's what you want.
That's what you want.
Right.
Because I do believe that our generation specifically, I know my mom stayed home with my sister until my sister was about 1 or 2 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And then she went to work. And prior to our parents' generation, it was the man works, provides, and the woman stays home. And that's where really this whole feminist movement started. But that's also because the patriarchy designed that, whereas men weren't actually loving and protecting, they were providing, but they were also abusing.
Yeah. Oh, sure. Sure. Yeah.
But I think what I tapped into the most with what you said is that yes, as women, I think we definitely have more space to go for the things that we want
Yeah.
than men do. And all the same time, we're all being conditioned to do what we have to and not
Mhm.
what we want to.
Oh, totally. Yeah, no, and it's like, if we can all just get past certain things, like just judgment
Mm.
of ourselves and other people. Like, if you are a woman and you want to work hard, but you also want to have kids, find a partner who will support that wildly. And in return, be the partner that supports that person wildly in their aspirations. And if you find that it doesn't match up, it's okay to be to I don't know, like adults just say, well, that life that you want doesn't match up with what my soul's desire is. And that's the same thing in jobs, even as bosses, whether you have male or female subordinates or whatever. If we as humans can tap into the fact that we as humans are all going to have certain drivers, certain triggers, whatever, as a boss, and you start feeling that someone's kind of pulling away, or they're not happy, or they're not fully into it, if you can help that person, be it male or female, it doesn't matter. It's, hey, is this helping you feel like you're fulfilling your life purpose? And if not, how do we, while you're here, have you give this your best? And how do I help you get to the next step so that we can make sure that someone who should be in this place or would be happy in this place gets here and you get where you want to be? I think there are too many people on both sides, male and female, fighting against each other, blaming each other, just judging each other, that no one's trying to freaking help each other.
Right.
And so then we're just in a society where everybody's fighting, and it doesn't
Yeah.
need to be that way.
Yeah. And that's why I've wanted to have these kinds of conversations, because it does feel like everybody's fighting.
Yeah.
And I loved the analogy that you use, because I do actually coach and guide my clients to treat their jobs as relationships. And even though the patriarchy is responsible for hierarchies, and yes, we do have to have leaders, and yes, we do have to have structures, but what I think is the most difficult concept to for even me, and I think the whole society that we're talking about here, is that we don't know any other way. So the patriarchy is about hierarchy, competition, so many structures, whereas a different kind of society, one that was, maybe more matriarchal, doesn't have to do with competition. It doesn't have to do with the hierarchies. It is coming from a nurturing space that is going to honor everybody for who they are and where they're at. And I think what trips all of us up, women included, not just men, women included, is that, well, one, we're afraid of the unknown, but two, we're also so used to, well, if this structure isn't in place and if this person is in charge, then it's going to be complete chaos. But what happens when we're nurtured and we're allowed, we're honored for who we are and allowed to be who we are, we actually shine and grow, and we're happy, and we have more space to love each other and care about each other. And I think really the truth is, I'm also having these conversations because I wish that I could take more action, and I don't know what action to take.
Yeah.
I don't know what the solution is. I don't know how to change everyone's mind, one conversation at a time. So I'm curious if you could shed light on any other solutions you might think could bring us together as a society instead of create more separation and division.
Well, I know this might sound very cheesy, but in fourth grade, I don't know if we had Miss Ritchie's class together, but I remember I had Miss Ritchie in fourth grade. I don't remember if you. So Miss Ritchie, you had Miss Poe? Okay.
Yeah.
So Miss, she basically, she played Man in the Mirror from Michael Jackson for us. And I don't remember what part of a lesson plan that was in the 4th grade, but I do remember hearing that. And part of her message was just like, in order to really make change in your life, you have to start with yourself. And I don't know why, as a 9-year-old, I really internalized that, probably for like the rest of my life, because, I was always the type of person to kind of, I mean, I'm the oldest child in my family. And so, trying to come up with solutions for things was always inherently inside of me. And so what I've done, even up till now, and I'll just share that, it's like, if I want to see a change in society, then as a lady, as a woman, as someone who, men can relate to at work, they can relate to me in, with regards to boardroom discussions and going out and making those big decisions, hiring people, firing people, building teams, building companies, right? The change has to come from our level of willingness to empathize, learn, and be in the other person's shoes. So knowing that, I feel like in a lot of ways I've been in a lot of men's shoes, right? I've been a single father, right? Like, I've been a single father having to pay for, my kids' school and pay for the things, and you know what I mean? And as much as my daughter's father has certainly contributed to the pack, you know, I there were a lot of things that I took on, and some things that, I had to give to him to sort of balance out for our daughter. So it's like, I've been in so many of those realms. And so for me now, a big part of this latter half of my life, I do want to dedicate to helping men understand that you don't have to be afraid of all strong women. There are some strong women who are so confident in who they are that they don't see you as an enemy, that are so confident in what they can bring to the table that they don't want to fight with you, that they will build with you, that they will hear you, that they will allow you to be in your vulnerable place and in your vulnerable state without shaming you, right? Because I know that I've seen men that when they can just let it all out and unleash, guess what? The warrior comes back out. They feel confident in, now I'm ready to go charge at it again. But if men never feel like women will ever be that place for them ever, then they're just going to keep internalizing, and we are going to lose a really strong half of our humanity. So I do believe that that's part of my thing. I want to help extend the olive branch to men and let them know that there are women out there that want to work with you, that want to build with you, and that will respect and honor you as long as, and as much as you respect and honor us and me. Then let's go. Let's keep strengthening humanity and making it good.
Yeah. There's so many different things that I can say about what you just said. And first is, be the change you want to see. So our perceptions create our reality. So men and women both, we both need to be accountable for our actions and be responsible and choose the loving thing or choose what's right for us. But I also want to bring up something here that I've learned about men in all my studies throughout the years, and then in coaching men. So there's a huge gap in those who are considered waking up or enlightened or, more spiritual. And that is because more women are more likely to go and talk to someone. They're more likely to feel their feelings because we weren't so conditioned not to feel, even though a lot of us were. We have our cycles. So we have times that during our cycle that we're more emotional. So we are actually more inclined to go talk, to go get that support, to go be seen, to go, be able to fall into someone else's arms and be held. Now, men, the masculine, so feminine is very circular, very flowy, the feminine essence, the feminine energy. Masculine energy is direct, it's linear, it's singular, it's focused. So when you said internalizes, so when a man goes into a hole, he just goes into a darker hole because the masculine is singular. And so it's even difficult to see that there's anything outside of the view that a masculine essence, we'll just say, we're not going to say men or women, we're going to say masculine essence. It's very hard to see that there are even other views outside of that. And so another solution could be just men being willing to talk to other men, men being willing to support other men. Just men need that support just as women do. And it's really nobody's fault that we've gotten here. Both men and women are responsible for the toxicity that is infiltrating our society today. And the solution is to heal our toxicity. And we can only do that by speaking out what's actually happening inside ourselves. I think we said before we started recording, no, you can't solve a problem with the same mind that created it.
Right.
You've got to reach out.
Yeah.
You've got to reach out, man or woman. You've got to reach out, and we've got to start healing, because that's what I've been saying all over my channels, is that really the way to do this is to heal our wounds, heal our toxicity. And from a healed space, from a healed mind, we can come together and work in harmony where it benefits everybody, not just men, not just women.
I think the other thing too, to your point, and I don't disagree that brotherhood is important and that men need to be there for each other. But sometimes, and I'm going to call out Tim Hess. Like, Tim Hess and I have been best friends since we're 12 years old. And even before that, I can name the guys that, that I grew up with that, sometimes as the girl in the, a little bit of a tomboy, I didn't wear makeup and my hair didn't look like this, certainly in high school. But even being a good female friend to your guy friends, like, Tim knows he can pick up the phone and freaking call me about anything at any time in any whatever. And the cool thing is, so does his girlfriend. She knows she can call and just be like, oh my gosh, blah, blah, blah. But like, there is that level of trust that, like, for years now, Tim knows that when he picks up the phone and he calls Nicole, it's like he's talking not just to his best friend, but like sister. It's like, we just have that for each other. And so, men, if you don't have maybe a group of guys that you fully trust to open up to, or whatever that is, I hope that there are really good and balanced women out there who will listen to you, who will be your sounding board. And again, you also want that to be in your like partner, right? So that's why it's always, for me, it's important that at the core of who you choose in your life for you as your partner can also see you as a friend. Because at the end of the day, we're all going through it. We will all go through it. There are things that you should be able to, go to your brothers about. But if you don't have that safe space, find a safe place. Find that person. Look for that non-judgmental, I can just tell this person anything and they'll let me unpack without judging how my brain works or judging how I'm looking at a situation, and might help me look at a situation even better. So, I have relied on many, of my guy friends, my as brothers, and just been like, dude, am I looking at this wrong? Is that wrong? So yeah, I can go to my girlfriend friends and I'm very lucky that way, but I also have really cool guy friends that I can call and just be like, bro, did I look at that right? And that's important that
And
we,
that
again, society,
we
create that
we
space.
need each other. We need each other. So the masculine, the reason I started coaching men is because the masculine heals through the feminine, and the masculine leads the feminine when the emotions or the swirl, right? It's not even a bad thing.
Yeah.
It's just the feminine doesn't really have a structure, a 100%, feminine essence, which is nobody on the planet. We all have a little bit of both. Some of them are super balanced. Some of us swing to either side, but the masculine leads the feminine, and the masculine also heals through nurturing from
Yeah.
the feminine. And so that's full circle back to my whole point, which is we need each other. And as we heal, healing removes judgments.
Yeah. Big
So
time.
neither one will judge the other. There will be space for everyone to be who they are.
Yeah.
So I know we've been talking for a while. I think I could talk for like 3 more hours.
Literally.
I mean, I could just keep going and going. But I just want to know, is there anything else that you want to say before we close?
Ugh, I mean, so much. Yeah, I mean, to all of the good men out there, there are women out there that see you and appreciate you and hope that the hard work that you're putting into the world, the hard work that you're putting into yourself, um, that that I do pray that all of our good men find the outlets, the healthy outlets, whether it be male or female, in terms of confidence. Like, I just really hope that, yeah, that our good men find that place, and that women can heal, we ladies and women can heal ourselves and generations of feeling suppressed by not basically attacking the other side and trying to see where we can work together so that we can grow as a human race in this new paradigm that we're all living in. But yeah, and I think the one thing too is, when it comes to experiences, there's so many of us in, I would say, in certain situations where we don't have that lack of experience of being able to empathize with whatever. And so you find that a lot of those people are going into judgments and judging. Be careful about being judgmental and judging people and judging situations, because you have no idea when the universe might throw that same situation at you without you even seeing it, without you seeing it coming, in order to force empathy.
Yeah.
So just that's a big thing, and I'm very glad that I work, in a world where I am exposed to a lot of, male energy, so that I can be empathetic without being thrown into the wolves. But it happens. So humans need to be more empathetic, and hopefully it happens before the universe forces situations that that will put you in the other people's shoes.
Right. Yes, thank you so much for that. I just want to add that empathy is a natural state of being when we're in our healed space.
Yeah.
And so, for anyone who might be impacted by this conversation, who might be noticing their judgments, like if you're a man, noticing your judgment about women, if you're a woman, noticing your judgments about men, in all my years of recovery and my spiritual journey, it's our judgments that give us the information of what we need to heal. So if you do
Yeah.
have judgments, go check it out. That's your path
Right.
to healing. Don't act on the judgment. Just take a look at it and see what you believe around it. And then that will ultimately lead to your healing, which will ultimately lead to everyone being
Yay.
in love.
Yes. Don't we?
Because love heals, and there are many
Love
leaders
does heal.
that promote that. So
I love
it's
that.
not going to get us anywhere.
So
Well, thank
smart.
you so much, Nicole. I totally enjoyed this conversation. I think we might have to make this a series, because I think we honestly, what it feels like to me is we hit on surface points and we could dive super deep into each one of those. So if you're out there and you're listening, if you were impacted by this, if you have questions, if you want to challenge us, please feel free to put that in the comments and let us know, and maybe we'll come back and address it. And if you want to find Nicole, her information will be in the description of the show. And that's all for now. Thank you so much, Nicole. It's been on.
Oh, thank you. It was great. Thanks for having me again.
I would like to personally thank you for tuning in to this episode. If you haven't already, please be sure to like this episode, subscribe to my channel, and turn on notifications so that you never miss a beat. And if you really resonated with this content, please share it with all of your friends so that collectively we can expand our consciousness. Have a very blessed week.